All right, good afternoon and welcome everybody to the Go Wellness Practice Accelerator Challenges. This is your host of the afternoon, Kate Archibald, and really excited. We got some really cool people on today. We got a full panel. Look at this beautiful screen with these talking heads. You guys are in for a treat tonight. So before we jump in, we want to cover a few of our housekeeping items and what's coming up. So we got the amazing Annie Asher here. Annie, let's update everybody on what's coming up next.
Just a reminder, session 3 is September 16th and 17th. So we're really excited. Dan's taking the helm on this one. He's created a beautiful agenda on just the entire kind of patient experience from day 0 to delivery of a treatment plan. So it's going to be very informative, very thorough, very awesome. So pump up your Reeboks.
Very cool. Well, we have a special guest on with us today from Cellcore. So we got Regan and Dan are going to be diving into some really cool stuff with Mr. Wes Watts from Cellcore. Thank you, Wes, for joining us. He is just a wealth of knowledge in the supplement and just really the health world that we live in. He spoke at our last Go Wellness event, or two times ago, session 1. And so, excited to have you here, Wes. And Regan, I'm gonna hand it off to you so you can really dive in with some cool stuff with Wes.
Awesome. Well, and Wes, I appreciate you being on. So if you guys kind of look at all the opportunities in healthcare, Go Wellness, we are innovation of medicine. Like it's the new genre that we're putting together. And one of the things that really kind of captivated me, Wes, when I first learned about Cellcore. Well, first of all, you guys are from Boise. And so anything grown in Idaho is usually superior to anywhere in the world. And so that was win number 1. Dan, all good things come from Idaho, right? I mean, isn't that kind of the slogan? Yeah. So, but the other thing that really was compelling is the fact that you guys are using carbon technology and doing it in a way where you're using short chain, medium chain carbons to help detoxify the body. But then you're also putting these charged particles and nutrients and have a very simple way of clearing out biotoxins from the body like no other system that I've ever seen. And so I wanted Wes to come in and talk about Cellcore a little bit. And if you guys have questions, plug it into the chat box. But tell us a little bit about Cellcore, and like if someone's going to treat, we'll just throw out leaky gut because we do a lot of that in functional medicine. Leaky gut, we typically are like, get rid of gluten and any molecular mimickers and your ibuprofen and birth control and all those things. And then we'll maybe throw some colostrum and bone broth at it. And then in Chinese medicine, we may prescribe some chai hu, huang lian. And then with peptides, we'd use like KPV, BPC 157, and that would kind of be it. But I found with Cellcore, we can actually, there's another level to it. So let's just talk about leaky gut and how Cellcore could be used in that application.
Yeah. So the things you mentioned, a lot of it is lifestyle. A lot of it is things that you can directly control day to day, right? The food that you eat, the medications that you take, right? Prescription or not. A lot of those can get you. And this is kind of why Cellcore even was started. The 2 founders were just chiropractors who practice in functional medicine, and they found a kind of a gaping hole as far as some patients with some of these things like leaky gut that people would get maybe 50% of the way there. Again, lifestyle, fixing their diet, maybe doing some different remedies to help rebuild the gut lining, right? Fortify the tight junctions. But oftentimes, what we found is that if it's not built on any kind of foundation, then you ultimately readdress the concern 6 to 12 months later, right? Depending on the specific patient. The other thing that makes Cellcore a little bit different in the approach to leaky gut is it's not going right to rebuilding, right? If the fire just burned down a building, you don't go right to rebuilding the building. First, you find the catalyst, you find the arsonist, and that's what Cellcore does. It really comes down to as simple as removing disruptors from the GI tract, even as far down with what you mentioned with those small chain carbon molecules down to the cell level, removing the disruptors in the body that ultimately are the main drivers of things like leaky gut or gut dysbiosis or whatever it is. So I think the easiest way to understand it for most people is to think of it kind of as a probiotic. Well, if your gut's out of balance, so you want to take a probiotic, right? You're jumping the gun because you didn't address why the gut got out of balance in the first place, which in our clinical findings, it's a wide array of toxins from chemicals to herbicide, pesticides, to mold and biotoxins, to heavy metals. And on the infection side too, whether that's parasites that you find in water, your food, or if that's bacteria or fungi, if we don't first address these disruptors and go right to rebuilding, you'll kind of run on this hamster wheel, or you only get like 50% of the way there. So that's kind of the main Cellcore thesis when it comes to most things we approach, but especially things like SIBO and leaky gut, for sure.
So let's talk about some of the mechanisms, because removing those biotoxins and the interferences is so critical. And this is what I've seen, especially with SIBO. When you just go and attack SIBO, it's like, cool, we got rifaximin, and now we've got the elemental diet, and the patient like goes through it, and finally after the elemental diet's done and they retest, and 60% of the time they're testing negative, the other 40% they're still positive, and even the negative tests, they still have symptoms. And it's like, I think we missed something and we have to go back. But how does Cellcore actually address that? How does it, what is the mechanism behind it removing some of these tougher interferences?
Yeah. So I guess to clarify your question, Regan, are you speaking more towards like the technology we use to actually get deep inside the body and more or less scrub the body? Okay. Yeah. That would be referencing the carbon technology that you referred to, and just a little bit of background on it, because I think it's important. There's specific extracts of humic and fulvic acid. And humic and fulvic acid are these compounds that more or less, after several years of deep decomposition of plant matter, out on the other side comes this very unique set of molecules, one being a humic acid, one being a fulvic acid. Humic acids are a bit bigger. They stay in the GI tract, versus the fulvic acids, which are derived from humic, are much smaller, even classified as naturally nano-sized, right, as found in nature. And what that means with the fulvic acid, and why humic acid's really good, but fulvic acid, I think, is the main driver of most of the formulas, is the fulvic acid has the ability to permeate the gut wall because it's so naturally small, and work systemically, even work intracellularly within the cell level. So that's kind of the beauty behind fulvic acid. The other kind of two things I'll briefly touch on before getting too much into the weeds with the carbon technology that we're referencing is not only the size, which I just touched on, right? You're getting at multiple levels of the body, but the energy of the molecule itself. The specific extract, we're not just taking fulvic acid, but we're taking a specific chain from fulvic acid that's highly energized. And because of that, it has the ability to, kickstart mitochondrial function, or it has a greater ability to bind a toxin, right? Because it's not just about what's on the back of the label when you look at a supplement, but it's about what is the energy in that, right? Is there any energy potential in that specific compound or molecule? And that's really what we take into account with the carbon technology, is size, energy, and then the last one, it's very reparative as well, because the molecule is a carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen based molecule, and very bioavailable molecules at that, meaning it can not only facilitate reactions, but what is the body made up of? It's 96% carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. So those are the three main things I like to touch on, just kind of at a top down level, is the size of it, getting to different areas of the body, the energy, and then the restorative ability.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's great. And I think, most supplement companies, that's not even on the radar. And that's where, when I first was introduced to Cellcore, I was like, holy smokes, this is something that's brand new. But the thing I love about it is it's gentle. The Herxheimer reactions are very minimal. I mean, we treat a lot of patients with multiple chemical sensitivities, patients who have autoimmune diseases, and they seem to tolerate most of the Cellcore products very well. It's been nice to see. So if we go back to our leaky gut analogy, just so people can have a context around how you can use this in your practice right away, what are some of the core products that you would use for leaky gut?
Yeah, that's if I had to pick out a few products, I'd first give it in the context of if you can view it and implement more of a protocol style, that's usually where you get the best bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Just because the whole point of this, what we coin foundational medicine approach, is to not try this one supplement this is the silver bullet that's going to do it, right? Or this is the silver bullet that's going to do it. And eventually you've run through all these supplements, whether that's you as the practitioner or the patient that has just ordered all these things online, hoping this is the one. So if I were to say a few supplements, I'd say you want to look at some of the binders that we have, because when you really look at the research of what is driving things like leaky gut, we look at chemicals and toxins. So we want to take binders for toxins. And then secondly, we want to address infection in the gut. And as I said earlier, that can range from fungus, candida overgrowth, to even parasites like Giardia, to bacteria like H. pylori. So really the top two things is infection and toxins. And then really what the protocol is built around, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later, the steps 1 through 4, is it's basically a systematic way to address toxins and infection, but it supports other processes in the body. So people aren't herxing, so they're draining well. So they're not just, clearing toxins and just having it sit in the body, but they're actually exiting them efficiently, which ultimately ends up in a smoother process for the patient. But yeah, I'd start infection and toxins, and we can get into specifics if you want to, as far as those individual ones, if you want.
Yeah, I mean, biotoxin binder is a phenomenal. I mean, I love that one just on a regular basis for myself personally. I just feel better when I use it. Tutka is another one that's definitely helpful as far as getting the liver bile secretions optimized. And then the Vidrad Chem. I mean, it's a weird name. I don't quite understand it, but that's
that when doctors are naming supplements, that's what happens, is nobody knows what they're talking about. It makes sense in their head, right? So yeah, you hit it right on the head. As far as like the products that probably move the needle the most when it comes to leaky gut, you're looking at the biotoxin binder. I think that is our most widely used product, because it's so versatile from SIBO to leaky gut. So probably starting, and it's probably the most well-tolerated binder I've come across, especially in the Cellcore line. Very well tolerated. You can plug it in right from the start of a protocol. I'd also throw in the HMET binder. That's more of a later stage binder, because it's not quite as tolerable as the biotoxin binder. But why I mentioned that one is because that one has a higher affinity for heavy metals and herbicides, pesticides, specifically glyphosate. And those are some of the biggest disruptors we see of the microbiome. And then once the microbiome is disrupted, that's when you start to see the loss of function as far as, leading into SIBO or leaky gut or whatever it is. So that's another one I'd probably use fairly regularly with leaky gut. And then besides that, you look at the para products, para 1 through 4. And just depending on the different assessments you have at your disposal, picking which para product, depending on if you're pulling parasites or if you're pulling more fungus or whatever that may be.
Hey everybody, Regan Archibald here. I hope you enjoyed the Go Wellness show and maybe learned a couple things you could apply to your practice. If you're a healthcare entrepreneur who wants to work in an academic think tank with like-minded humans who are just like you, looking to provide better service, better quality of care for your patients, reach us at info@gowellness.com and we're happy to do a free practice analysis for you.